here, others are still waiting for free stuff. People these days. So, morning everyone. Today we are going to talk about my experiences on how can we enable continuous delivery in testing, especially in the context of enterprises. Okay. For those who do not have this information from the earlier session, my contact information is there. So if we cannot talk later today, if you have any other thoughts, questions, just general feedback or discussions around it, feel free to reach out to me and we can find ways how to connect and talk about that. That said, enabling continuous delivery in enterprises with testing. What do you expect from it? What made you choose this track compared to others? I'm guessing you just read the title. What do you expect from this? Projects that you're working on, what challenges you face and how can you apply some practices to get better at continuous integration and delivery, right? Okay. Any other thoughts?
It's more to do with like how we are deploying the builds and how the unit test and the functional tests are executed over it, and how the reports are getting aggregated and then displayed like on a panel or something, like what are the results, on what criteria we should say that yes, this much code coverage is done and this much amount of test cases have passed, so we can say that which is ready for promotion.
Okay, so how do we deliver a lot of functionality into applications continuously?
Large enterprise applications.
Large enterprise applications, yes, correct. Okay, yes, we will focus on that, and also no, we will not focus on that because this is what we are going to do. We are going to prove a triangle is a pentagon. Okay, and in the next 40-ish minutes, I promise I'll prove this to you. Okay, let's get started. So what is the objective of any organization? It is threefold. Regardless of size of the organization, the domain of the organization. The first is that the organization wants to make money by providing value, or conserve money and provide value. Not for profit type organizations, right? So money is definitely a critical aspect of it, and what value you are providing to your end users. To do this, you have to get your product offering in front of the end users in good time. Without that, you're not going to achieve your first objective. But none of this will be possible if whatever product offering you're taking to your consumers is not of good quality. Right? We agree with this, regardless of the domain, product, organization that we work with. Now, what I want to share is my experiences on a core banking implementation platform and how certain practices that we applied helped us deliver faster, help us deliver right. Okay. Anyone from finance background or finance domain? 1, 2. Telecom? Healthcare? E-commerce? Which domains are we missing? Sorry?
Business research.
In organizations in the way we are working, for what value we are trying to deliver. A lot of it definitely is related with the skills, capabilities, practices that you have on the team. That definitely at times becomes a limiting factor. But still, you cannot just say this domain is easy. No domain is really easy if you want to have a good product offering to your consumers. And likewise, a core banking implementation is also very complex. This is a project I was working on, a program that I was working on for a bank, an Australian bank, which had a lot of distributed teams. So the bank is of course in Australia with operations in New Zealand as well, and development, testing, and a lot of other implementation, even support and everything happening out of India and China. So fortunately from a time zone perspective, it was not that spread out to make it very challenging as it would be, for example, India, US, kind of time differences, right? This was still better in that sense. But still, it's very complex because the minute you're working with someone who you cannot see, a lot of challenges start coming up over there. The scope of this program, now being a bank, having a legacy core banking implementation with mainframes and a lot of other systems in place, which have been built over time. What they wanted to do is they wanted to change from a legacy-based system to a new system for various reasons, right? Because what you need to do is, as part of the new implementation, you probably need to introduce new systems to make that existing perspective. This is what it really looked like, the architecture diagram at a high level. Why I call it a high level? Because the scope of this work is actually around 130 systems and 290 interfaces. That is what this core banking implementation really meant about changing the implementation engine and getting everything else updated to work well with it. Okay? This is the scope we are talking about. It's pretty massive. This program was envisioned to be around a 5-year program to make all these changes happen. But of course, it extends for various reasons, right? But minimum 5 years if you're talking about. How does a bank really work in this case? This is not being a bank doesn't mean they've got tons of money. They can just spend whatever it takes to get this implementation done. This was a small bank for that matter, a medium-sized bank, and investing for 5 years on this program, they don't want to wait for the end of 5 years to see the returns, to see what is really happening, what this new platform really means. They want to invest incrementally, see the returns, based on the returns say yes, we are on the right track, let's invest more, let's do more with it. That's the thing. So challenges in executing on this kind of a program, multiple partners. The business of a bank is to run a bank. They're not an IT shop, they're not an IT organization necessarily. They'll have an IT division, but it's not really to build systems or maintain it on their own. It will be more from a support maintenance kind of perspective and some innovation labs of sorts happening to build new systems and try things out. This was the case over here. So what that meant, they have to work with multiple vendors and partners to get that execution happening. The challenges with that is each organization that you work with, each vendor or partner that you work with, and I am using these words consciously because vendors means vested interest, partners mean partners psychologically. But each of these organizations have their own way of working. They have their own constraints, they have their own policies. And how does this all program of scope come together as one team working towards one delivery? That's first challenge. Because of the number of partners, the number of stakeholders involved is immense. I know 3 years ago when I was working on this program, from a testing perspective, my full week used to just go by interacting with and getting 19, 20 different stakeholders across partners to get them aligned to the testing strategy, the vision, and how you want to execute on testing side. Whole week used to go in that. Just interacting and getting everyone on the speed. Also, because we want to work in the agile way, because money is not unlimited, you want to start investing little, get the returns. But what does agile really mean? Anyone not working on agile in this room? Everyone is working on agile or has worked on agile in some way. Do we understand agile to the same level? Is your definition of agile the same as yours? Not necessarily. There are different interpretations of what agile really means. Fundamentally, it might be one thing, but when it starts coming to implementation side, there's a big gap. And likewise over here, the bank had one understanding of agile which they were trying to go with, and the different partners had different understanding of agile. How do you get these teams starting to work together? Last bit is trust. Because of whatever baggage that might have happened in the past, there was a lot of trust issues over here as well. So how do you move beyond what has happened in the past and start delivering well? These are some set of challenges. There are other challenges as well. Now, team distribution, we have got so many different regions. And why it's a battle again? Because we are working agile. We have not spent years in analyzing how the flow should be and how we want to execute. We are learning along the way as well. So how do we do that? Also, because we want to see incremental delivery happening, what it means is out of those 130 systems, maybe in the first delivery that we do, only 30 of those need to be replaced. But the rest needs to continue working fine with these 30. At the same time, for certain functionality, maybe it now needs to go to both these systems, the new and the old ones, to make sure nothing else is breaking. So slowly and steadily, you want to start replacing existing systems with newer systems, while the end user doesn't really see any difference. In fact, starts to see value out of that as well. Okay, that is coexistence. Likewise for data migration, as systems are getting replaced in bits and pieces, the data needs to be managed really well. Because data is the core thing of a banking system, the history and how the rules and all will be processed. So how do you really take care of that? And because of trust issues and multiple vendors, partners involved, defect management, how do you really do that? How do you say this is the problem we see and which team is rightly equipped to fix it? Instead of saying this is not my problem, this is your problem. Can we relate to these challenges in whatever work we have done so far or are doing right now? These are very realistic, right? The big thing that is missing is, other than functionality, there's a lot of non-functional requirements just given that it's a bank. So the ones that come to mind immediately would be these few things: security, performance, auditability, compliance, accessibility. Without these, any system, especially the banking side of it, cannot go live. In such a case, how do we really ensure that the code quality is maintained well? Because without understanding code quality, you wouldn't be able to say, yes, I can deliver or go to the next environment, or I can go live with this change or not. And code quality essentially means, has the right requirement been identified and has it been implemented correctly? Right? One way to verify that part is testing side of it. But essentially, it's all about code. If code has been built well and in the right way, you don't need to do separate testing for it. Unfortunately, not the world we are in. So, how do we really ensure quality of a code in such a complex system? So, to explain a little bit more about this case study itself, right? There is a core product team. So, the architecture that we saw, that weird polygon replaced with a square shape, right? That's a core banking platform that needs to be changed. Now, in such case, the team which is building that banking platform is a core product team. You're buying a product from them, and because in this case it was their first go-to market also with that particular banking platform, they were taking a lot of inputs from the bank to say, what are your requirements? Systems teams as well. Okay, I can generate a statement, can I print it? I can generate a checkbook, can I print it on my printers, checkbook printers? You need to take it to the last mile to say, with this platform I'm still able to do what is required to do from an end system perspective. And of course we spoke about the NFRs. Now all these changes which are happening, they are going to the common version control systems. And whatever form of test we have, whether it's manual or automated, they are getting run against this code base. Everyone is using this center code base, right? To keep it simple, in this discussion, we will not even focus on the systems team and NFRs. We'll just focus on the other aspects: core product, customizations, and integration. So in such a situation, in such a complex environment, might be new binaries, patched versions of whatever is around.
So you were working with that organization delivering the product for the bank. You were not directly working with the bank.
I was working with the bank. With the bank, and because we want to take this program live, it meant working with all these different teams as well. Okay? So in this case, how do you get early feedback? Because it's not really about testing, right? It's about knowing if your code is good, if I can take this live or not. The organization objectives has remained the same. I need to start now looking at how can we get this validation aspect done fine. One of the practices which is not common anymore, thankfully, is continuous integration. What that means is any check-in, any code changes that happen, regardless of any team, you want to ensure that how to take this program live, it meant working with all these different teams as well. Okay? So in this case, how do you get early feedback? Because it's not really about testing, right? It's about knowing if your code is good, if I can take this live or not. The organization objectives has remained the same. I need to start now looking at how can we get this validation aspect done fine. One of the practices which is not common anymore, thankfully, is continuous integration. What that means is any check-in, any code changes that happen, regardless of any team, you want to ensure that all the types of tests that you have automated against it will run as quickly as possible and give the feedback so that we can isolate and say, this was the code that changed which caused these tests to start failing. You're preventing defects from going live, right? You're starting to find that earlier. So, for those who don't really know CI, what happens, a developer on the developer machine will make some changes, push the code to a version control system, tests will run there. Any other developer who wants to make changes or add new functionality will take that latest copy of the code, make changes, push the changes, and that cycle keeps repeating. Okay, so everyone is working against one code base, the latest version of that code base, making changes, running tests on developer machines before they push it to version control system, ideally, and the test would again run over there as well. This is a kind of feedback cycle which will start telling immediately that, okay, maybe it is this team made 10 changes while the build was running on. As soon as the build went green, those 10 changes went into version control system, and now the tests are going to run against those with those changes, which means if any test fails, someone from this team did something which caused some functionality to break. Now it might just mean the test was out of date because functionality has changed, the tests were not updated, or there might be actual regressions, what was thought. There's a lot of things required to make the changes reflect in the new environment in a seamless fashion. And that's where the DevOps practices come in, that if you automate that aspect of taking your version of code from one environment to the other, by click of a button or by running a single command, that might itself mean a lot of things happening in the backend. But if you're able to automate that for one environment, then there's nothing preventing you from saying, I can do the same with extensions of those from dev to QA, QA to QA1, QA1 to pre-prod, pre-prod to prod. The basic infrastructure has now been set up. Now what you're doing is managing that with more configurations based on what environments you're trying to proceed. That is continuous delivery. Continuous delivery doesn't necessarily mean you are taking each change live to production, but it doesn't stop you also from doing that for that matter. Okay? So, in this bank, how do we get to continuous delivery? There are certain principles and practices that we need to focus on that will help us do that. Now, there are a lot of principles and practices, right? So if I have to make it very generic, Agile has got 4 tenets. Those 4 tenets have got 12 principles. 12 principles can essentially be achieved by hundreds of different practices. Does it mean you have to do all those 100 practices to be Agile? Not necessarily. You have to pick and choose the practices that are going to work for you to help deliver faster, to help achieve the principles that you sought out to achieve. Likewise, there is one practice that makes teams successful, that is test automation. Okay? Finding out what is to be automated and why, and based on that, putting it in script to ensure it runs in a repeated fashion every time and ensures that what was thought of working earlier is working well now as well. Now, test automation doesn't mean it's functional automation or just UI automation. It is any type of validation which is going to give me feedback about that functionality. It could start right from unit tests, integration tests, web service tests, or UI tests, performance security, any type of test. You automate it and you automate it well, it will start giving you value for the team. It will tell you what went wrong if the test fails. At the same time, this is also a practice which can cause teams to be unsuccessful. Why? Because again, this is coding, right? If I write crappy code, pardon my language, then it might work up to a certain point in time, but then when it starts failing, you have no idea what is happening with it. Likewise, on the testing side of it, if you do not use proper coding practices, we spoke about in the first session earlier today, you have to emphasize on the code quality, and if you do that well, only then will automation as a practice start helping you and providing value to the team. Okay, so what exactly is test automation then? We've got, oh, that's a very short 30-minute session.
You can take 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so test automation is a safety net. What was working earlier, you want to ensure it is working well right now also.